Hey, welcome to Vic Knows the Vibes, where every chat is a vibe check. I'm your host Vicky, here to explore life's nuances with you. Are you ready to dive in and vibe together? Welcome to another episode of Vic Knows the Vibes. As you can see from the title, I'm going to be talking about unemployment and all the feelings that come with it, but also just wanting to push that reminder that you may be unemployed, but you're definitely not unworthy. If you haven't been seeing the discourse about unemployment and the job market and the impending recession and how hard it is to make money and keep money, I don't know, I need to know where you live because it sounds very peaceful. But for everyone else who is very aware of everything going on, one of the common themes, of course, I've been seeing is just unemployment and how hard it is to find a job or keep a job, or how these jobs are offering such low wages but wanting the most educated and the most experienced. And obviously this is very frustrating because you kind of feel like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Obviously you want a job / need a job because you have bills and responsibilities, but you also don't want to shortchange yourself in a way and have to concede and give up the pay that you're looking for and almost cower to these employers just to live. And as someone who's been working for over 15 years now and honestly has worked in so many different fields, I can totally relate to all of the emotions that come up when you're in that weird space between jobs, or you're in a job that you hate, and you realize that, okay, a lot of my livable experiences are tied to money. I'm not saying that it's the most important thing, but you want to go on vacation, you want to buy certain things, you want to provide a certain lifestyle for yourself and your loved ones. You probably need money, especially if you're living in the Western world. Sometimes it can honestly feel like a constant loop. When you're working a job and maybe you don't like said job, you feel miserable or depressed and you're job hunting / you want to quit and just live your life. But then let's say you do make that move. Now you're jobless, but now you don't have money, or you're having to tap into your savings, and now you're stressed because your bills are coming up and you need to make sure you have enough money for that. So now you feel miserable again. And then when you're job hunting, it feels like a pit of endlessness. Honestly, I am someone who is no amateur to the job market and job hunting and job applying, and I've always typically prided myself on being a person that could find jobs really quickly. And I would say recently was one of the first times where I actually could relate to the idea of the job market not being great. Before I'd be like, oh, people say X, but I've experienced Y, and kind of go with it that way. But now I'm really realizing the difference and how our environment has changed when it comes to job hunting. And there's been a lot of emotions that have come with it, I won't lie. I would say it honestly takes a lot of emotional resiliency to be able to stay motivated and keep your mental health positively in check when you are either stuck in a job you don't like, or job hunting, or really pinched for money, but having to still look for jobs or push yourself. Because there are people that are okay with just working a 9-to-5 or a structured job, and that is fine. Not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, and I feel as though when people who are in that weird purgatory looking for jobs, whenever they vent, people are like, oh, start a business, okay, pour into yourself, do this and that. But not everybody wants that. And entrepreneurship is not easy either. It takes a lot of work, and sometimes it takes a lot of money, at least upfront, to see any type of movement or success. And so I think that idea is also nuanced, and it's something that we have to take into consideration. It's so common to equate having a good job with having high value and having a high sense of self-worth. You go to any type of party or you're meeting people for the first time, one of their common questions is going to be, oh, what do you do? Oh, what career field are you in? And honestly, I was going to say I used to hate that question. I still hate that question, whether I had an amazing career or not. I just feel like there's so many more interesting things about me I could talk about as opposed to my job or my career, unless I'm very interested in it, unless it's very cool and, I want to spread the news. But otherwise, I just kind of feel like it's low-key a question used to gauge me and my pockets and kind of what I'm doing. And I don't know, it's just kind of an uncomfortable question. I typically don't ask any person what they do for work unless I notice the person is first talking about their job. Then I'm like, okay, clearly this is something that's very important to you. Let's hear it. But I'm not a fan of asking that to a person because honestly, I feel like, again, you can tell me anything else about yourself. I don't need to know what you do Monday to Friday, you know? I feel like I'm always talking about society and how much it puts pressure on us to act and feel and think a certain way, but it's so true. I think even in this instance, it's so clear how society has taught us how much productivity affects our self-worth and why it's so important, even from a young age, you know, grade 9, 10, you're having those career classes, you're having the test to determine what career you should go into, you're talking to your guidance counselors, miss, sir, what classes should I take in order to get into university, get into college? Should I do applied? Should I do academic? And it just feels like there's so much pressure for such a young person to determine what they want to do. I personally feel like even at 18, it's still too young to say, okay, I'm going to take this 4-year program. I'm going to take OSAP, this huge loan, and go into this program because this is the career I want. And then you get into second year and you're like, hold on, I don't want to do this at all. And now you feel lost. You feel like you failed. And it can really do a number on you. And so I just hate how much pressure we put on ourselves in order to find that golden job, if you will, because we equate it with high value, high self-worth, high success. I think that this hits even harder for Black women, honestly. I have seen so many people talk about how they're so qualified, overqualified, and yet they get questioned 100 times more than their counterparts because it's as if someone doesn't believe them. Somebody doesn't think that you would be able to have all these credentials, but you're applying for this minimum wage job without factoring in the type of market that we're in currently. I've had so many interviews where it really felt like they weren't interested in my experience. They more so just wanted to kind of catch me in a lie. I had one interview where, I kid you not, all the interviewer did was ask me the job title, ask me where I worked, and then ask me what I did. And it was very awkward because it was a virtual interview, and I could see her reading my resume as I was talking about each role. So I don't know if she was trying to trip me up, but it was just very uncomfortable. And I don't know, you want to believe that it has nothing to do with race, it has nothing to do with any other factors other than them looking for the best candidate. But I am old enough, I've been in this job market long enough to think that it sometimes is about race. You know, people are people, and as much as we want to think that they don't hold biases, they do. I was looking into some research regarding Black women and the unemployment rate as well as the wage gap disparity, and I found some interesting but of course unsettling information via Industry Intelligence Incorporated and the Canadian Women's Foundation. So this specific stat is from 2022, but they noted that Black women earned approximately 58.5% of what white men earned based on median wages, salaries, and commissions. 58.5%. Like, can y'all imagine? Additionally, in 2023, the average hourly wage for core age Black Canadians was $30.83. However, this is compared to $36.27 for the rest of the population. This indicates a wage gap of about 15%. And of course, there's going to be, exceptions. There's going to be different fields and industries that minority men and women work in where maybe it's actually the opposite, or maybe they're very successful. But this is more so just looking at the average experience for a Black Canadian, and more specifically, a Black woman. Reading up on stats like these can feel so discouraging because you feel like you're really up against everything and everyone. I feel like it's a running joke that I see on social media where they're talking about Black women and how we hold so many degrees and so many credentials and so much experience. And it's like, is that a trauma response? I love education. I feel like it's so important to be educated. It's so important to have different perspectives in the world. And one way to get that is through education. But sometimes it feels like off balance. Like, why do I have to have a degree and postgrad to be working the same job as Jimmy, who only went to college, And that's not to knock Jimmy at all, but it just feels like sometimes I have to do so much more just to be in the same office or share a cubicle space with somebody who didn't do as much. It makes me think of that quote by Olivia Pope's dad in Scandal, where he says you have to be twice as good as them to get half of what they have. And honestly, it's so true. Speaking of what they have, or what anyone has for that matter, I want to dive a bit deeper into the financial aspect of having a job versus being within that realm of unemployment and feeling like you're scraping by. I think it's pretty clear that money is almost essential in the world that we live in today. We need it for rent, healthcare, food, family, responsibilities, fun. It just seems like everything costs money. And looking at the price of eggs right now, it's like everything costs a lot of money. Financial stress can be such a burden for people, whether they're single or in a relationship. And I just hate that that is the case. You're always thinking about money. You're always thinking about how to make more money, how to save money, what you need to spend, when you can spend it. And I just feel like that's no way to live, but it seems like that's the reality that we're in right now. There's also the piece about financial shame and how that money stress can also isolate you from other people. You see all of your friends or even family members excelling and they're doing such great things with their money or because of money. And if you're not in that same situation, you may feel inadequate. You may be full of regret looking back at your decisions. Why did I spend this money? Why did I get that credit card? And the list just goes on, and it can really, really put you into a dark place. These feelings are so common, and I just wish more people would remember that sometimes it's not their fault and sometimes it is, but you shouldn't just be known for your financial mistakes, especially when you're doing your best to be better and learn from those mistakes. I have a friend who is so quick to call out capitalism, and low-key, she's not wrong. Sometimes it's not even about your lack of ambition or direction. It really is the system that we are forced to function within. And let's be honest, the people that created the system are never going to give you the hack on how to beat the system or become successful within the system. So you're trying to break through the ceiling while also trying to afford groceries for the week. I want to talk a bit more about the time in between jobs, when you're dealing with unemployment, whether you are taking time for yourself to explore businesses or you're looking for a job but you just can't find one. I've definitely had my fair share of instances where I'm leaving a job or I'm officially signed out and I'm about to return my equipment, and it's just a huge sigh of relief. You just realize how much time you have within the day and you just feel free. Unfortunately, if you're preparing to head back into that workspace, it's a high that doesn't really last long enough, I would say. And when that period of unemployment starts to last way longer than you anticipated, it is so easy to look back and be like, okay, I should have just sucked it up. I should have just kept what I had going. At least I was making money. At least I had this and that. But I truly believe that if a job is causing you a lot of stress and you feel emotionally disturbed, you should leave because your health is also very important. Now, I know this may not be possible for every single person, but for those of you who can swing it, I do encourage you to take a break or step back from work if and where you can, just to explore yourself, explore your other interests, and see what else you like within this world. And also understand that it's not always about a 9 to 5. As a person who loves to explore the world of entrepreneurship, I know that when I'm not working a typical 9 to 5, I just have way much more time to explore my interests and other avenues. The time off from a typical 9 to 5 really helps me have laser focus on my own businesses, on myself, on my insights, really determine what I want to do in this life. And it really allows me to pick apart where I see myself in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. But don't be fooled. Entrepreneurship is a lot of hard work and sometimes even more work than your standard 9 to 5. When you're running your own business, and unless you've hired people to assist, everything is going to fall on you. You're having an issue, you are HR. You have payment issues, you are payroll. And that can be very stressful, and burnout can come faster than you realize. I personally love the freedom that comes with entrepreneurship, but again, I recognize that it's not for everyone. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, it's okay to want a stable job with benefits and a clock out time and not having to worry about anything else until you clock in the next day. Nowadays, there seems to be such a hyperfixation on hustle culture and grind culture and making it on your own. And again, we just have to recognize that that is not for everyone. I've encountered so many people who truly feel fulfilled working their 9 to 5 and those who feel the same way about running their own business. And I think both are okay. The most important message here would be that success looks different for everyone. I would definitely love to hear more stories from people who have left their 9 to 5 and started their own business. I know they exist, and it can really be very encouraging for people, especially those who are debating whether to leave a 9 to 5 and start their own, but just need that extra push. If you're not interested in entrepreneurship but have just fallen on hard times during unemployment, I think that it is still so important to take care of yourself and still explore your interests. I could probably talk ad nauseum about job hunting tips and how to fix your resume or cover letter and how to nail an interview, but we've kind of heard it all before. I'd rather look at the time and opportunity you've gained from being unemployed. And again, no one is saying that you should ignore your responsibilities. Rent is still going to be due at the end of the day and you're still going to have other bills to pay. But I don't think that you have to fixate on the job hunt while ignoring other things about yourself. You can start with reframing your rejections. Just because someone is saying no, it does not mean never. It could just mean not right now. You can also now prioritize the time and taking intentional breaks and also protecting your energy, allowing you to seek out what you really want and learn what you don't. And I do feel it really helps to know that you're not the only person in a similar or an exact same situation. This market right now is crazy and it's quite unsettling. I would hope that you don't feel like a failure or that you're falling so behind because you're really not. We're all on different timelines and life is such a journey. I know that's cliche, but as I get older, I'm really coming to understand that phrase. Something that's really helped me navigate any field of unemployment that I'm in is remembering that people are people. You'll see them at the grocery store, you'll see them at the movies, and then you'll see them at their 9 to 5. This is particularly great to remember when you're interviewing. I know it can feel like a lot's at stake and it's high stress, but that person also has a boss. It's really just a conversation. As much as they're interviewing you to determine if you're a good fit for their company, you are also interviewing them. You gotta make sure that the vibes are on point because there's nothing worse than trying your hardest to nab a job, getting in there and realizing it's toxic. So with that being said, to all my unemployed people, I know this time can feel discouraging and frustrating and very heartbreaking, but you will get through it. The pendulum always swings, and the best opportunity can be on the other side of your unemployment. And without further ado, the takeaway vibe. Being in between jobs doesn't mean you're in between purpose. Comparison really is the thief of joy, and when it comes to jobs, it's no different. It's so easy to look at your life and compare it to your friends or your counterparts and feel really underwhelmed because they're doing so much. They have a senior position and maybe you're looking for entry-level roles. But as I mentioned, everyone's journey is different and everyone's view of success is also going to be different. Trust that you're on the right path for you. Purpose is not always loud and it doesn't have to be about your job title or your direct deposit amount. It shows up in your core values and the person that you're always becoming. So stay the course and keep evolving. To my listeners, I hope that you find the job that you want. I hope that you start the business that you want and you have so much success. Thank you so much for listening and I'll catch you next time. Bye.